Hello and good evening guys, and welcome to a new video where I will be showing you how to make these natural arches without any mods, any dependency mods whatsoever. This means of course that you can use this in a map, a new map, the map editor, and not require any extra dependencies and assets and mods for the player who plays the map, which I think is super exciting. It's a little bit niche tutorial for map makers in general, specifically, but some of the tricks might apply to actually the game as well. So I'm not gonna say it's just for map makers, but I recently figured out a way to make these arches here, and I'm super excited about it, and I want to share it. It's not gonna be perfect. There's gonna be some issues. This arch here that I threw together in like 30 minutes or so looks good from certain angles. It looks terrible if you go too close. Like, you'll see it glitching from the inside. If this is a deal breaker, then maybe there needs to be a better method. But I'm pretty sure with some more time we can figure out a way to cover the inside of it and make it even better looking. This arch also, this natural arch, the thing that inspired me to do this altogether is the Moon Hill. It's a place in Yangshuo, in Guangxi, in southern China. A place I visited a long time ago, and I was fascinated by it. And yeah, it's such a cool feature, these natural arches. So I just feel like, what if we could do them on City Skylines maps? Wouldn't that be great? Okay, enough of an intro. Let's start building this. The first thing we need to do is we need to go and find the canals. We do need some mods for this to work, like to be able to build it. Like, we need find it to be able to find the canals in the map editor. But other than that, I mean, it's not really a dependency. Like, you can load this map fine. Everybody has the canals in the game. They are vanilla. As long as you don't select these wider canals, that is, then that's a separate problem. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag out a segment of canal like this. I should do it again so I can talk about what I'm doing. Drag it out. I'm gonna find some nodes here in the middle, remove it, and raise them up. You do also need move it to be able to do this, to make this in a map editor. But once again, it's not a hard requirement at all for loading a map with these features. Gonna make it a little bit smaller. I'm using the plus and minus keys. That's my new favorite trick with move it, I think. And I'm gonna make something like this kind of shape. I'm gonna raise it up a little bit above the terrain. Yeah, something like that. Looks good enough. Next step is I'm gonna find the rocks, and I'm gonna go straight for this rock here, the rock formation number 4. You can use any rocks or any combination of rocks, but I think this one is my favorite. And I'm gonna place one down, and I'm gonna use move it to drag this into place over the canal like this. Because the canal is a magical network. It's these rocks are terrain conforming, so they will be placed on the ground. But the ground level on these canals is actually at the brim or at the top of the canal. So that's what makes this whole thing possible. I'm sure there's like 10 other things, or like 10,000 other things you can do with this canal trick, by the way. So don't limit yourself just to sort of thinking about natural arches because I told you to. But that's the obvious case for me anyway, or whatever thing I want to use it for. But like, I'm just so excited for like finding tricks and using tricks like this in the game. Okay, I've copy and pasted a few, like a total of 4. Let's try, should we like maybe get another one in here? Like, maybe we can get it a bit more rounded. So basically, these are snapping to the non-existing terrain that is over the canal. That's the reason why this works. I'm gonna drag this out a little bit. Gonna make it a little bit better, something like that. And I'm also gonna do some more of these rocks down the side. You can mix and match and use different types of rocks as well. I just feel like this particular rock is pretty good. It naturally works pretty well for this. If you want to make a much smaller natural arch without all the hassle of the canals, you can use this same rock and just do this. Then you have a natural arch. And I do believe you can almost create this one even without... let's see, we don't have anarchy, we have collision on. Yeah, I do believe you can actually create this one fully vanilla in the map editor, and probably also in the game if you have access to these rocks. So that's the simpler version of the same arch. Okay, it doesn't look much for world right now, but we'll fix it up a little bit. I'm going to go in and terraform around a little bit here to make sort of these rocks look like they're sloped a little bit better. Still not great, but we're getting there. I figured might as well like turn some of these around even. It might create a bit of a nicer slope on the crest, or the top instead. And yeah, it did. It did. And we can go crazy with these rocks. I mean, we can like, you know, can just add rocks all the way down. Add a different kind here. Add. Maybe we should add like these here. Something like that. Okay, great. And yeah, then we have the geological part of our formation, I think. The next part is another trick, which is both extremely... I'm a bit skeptical about it, like how much you should use this trick, but it is extremely powerful. Like, hear me out. You see how this arch here has trees on it? That's not weird if we're using tree snapping. The thing is, I'm not using tree snapping. I have quite a few mods in my asset editor list, but you will see here, you can pause and see, there's no tree snapping, there's no tree anarchy, no prop anarchy, nothing like that. I don't use these mods for the map editor, because then they would be a requirement for the player to at least play the map the same way, but we still get trees up here, and so these trees here, to get these trees to do this, I'm going to go in and find a network. I'm going to find the tree with the 2-lane road with trees. I'm going to drag out the segment. I'm going to drag it out like this, actually. And I'm going to use the grid here to make it so that both nodes are in the exact same position. And that just gives us a single tree, which we can raise and lower how much we want. And since the update, we can also, when we can add, I think it was airports. I do believe it was airports. We can change the trees on the roads. We can change this to any tree we want. And we can move it, and we can copy it like crazy. So we can go around this rock formation here and just copy in lots of oak trees. Look at this. No mod tree snapping. The obvious downside to doing this is that it takes up a lot of networks. Every tree we place this way is 2 nodes and 1 segment, which is not great for limits. But for limited feature builds, if you just have a few trees you really want to or need to get in there, this works as far as I know. Like, it's Namitsujima actually has quite a few of these trees placed near the temple to hide the built-in ugly trees, the ugly bamboo trees that came with the asset. So it's already been tested on maps, and it's very clever. It's not very noticeable. You don't really notice it if you don't really know to look for it. So I'm just gonna put some of these oak trees. I'm gonna raise them up so they stick up kind of like bushes on this rock. I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Just copy and paste so we don't have to redo so much of the work. Same there. Following these sort of crevices, I guess. And yeah, you have to place every tree individually using Move It this way, so it's a little bit painful, of course. In that regard, it's, as I said before, it's not very great for the node count, but if you just need a few trees, now you can do it at least, and there's nothing stopping anybody from loading this map because of this. This is vanilla roads, this is vanilla trees. It's not going to cause any notifications or anything like that. There we go. Another thing we could do to sort of affect the shape of this without using the terraforming is we could get like a network, for example, a trench network. And we could drag it in to the actual rocks here and do stuff like this with it. And affect the shape of it by forcing basically forcing the terrain to change around, and it doesn't look very good here. I think it looks pretty good by itself without it, but I did use that trick over on this arch to create a bit more of a pronounced shape. I've also in this example used these vegetation pieces here, which you can place in the map editor, and you can place them relatively close to hide the canal transition, so it doesn't look too man-made. We want it to look natural. It is a natural arch after all. So that's something we can do as well. For example, we can also slope the terrain around it a little bit better, make it fit in. We can place normal trees around it. Make it sort of normal trees with, I mean, actual trees, tree asset trees. Although this this mix here really doesn't work as good with a generic pine because of the. If we want to really melt it in, we should use the same trees on the arch as around it. So, I feel the live oak is a good candidate for that. You can of course use this to create like natural arches like this, like the Chinese kind, I suppose, the southern Chinese kind. You could also do like coastal natural arches. So for example, like, the cliffs that sort of go out into the ocean. And I feel like it almost fits better in some regards that way. Because this could be like the entrance to some kind of pirate cove or some pirate cavern or something, You could make a really cool feature out of this. But of course that requires us to work with the water, which is always a bit scary. But it's an option. It is an option. I want to talk about another thing as well. You can see I placed two pretty much identical arches here. One that you can see through and one that you can't. And the difference here is that this one is outside of the unlocked tiles. Or as a matter of fact, this is how they look when they are outside of unlocked tiles. So there's mods you can use to avoid that. If you're using the mod Common Ground, you can basically make that all tiles, make it visible in all tiles. It's the same effect that if you have like a map with a tunnel in the map editor, the tunnel entrances won't be visible. They will be like just filled in with dirt and grass outside of the unlocked tiles by default. So that's something to keep in mind. If you want this to always be visible for everybody, you should make sure to have the arch placed in the starting tile of the map. So then it's always unlocked by default. But I don't think it looks so bad filled in that it's a deal breaker. You could have it like this, and then and now the arch appeared when you unlocked the tile. So, but just a note about it. If you're using 81 tiles to unlock all tiles, it will always look like this. So, and I think that's about it for this tutorial. Granted, this one didn't look as pretty as the others. There are issues with it. Don't overdo it with these network trees. Be careful how you use them. Keep in mind the node limits are very strong. There's a lot of nodes here. Let me know if you figure out a good way to cover the inside here so it looks even better. But I'm so excited for this, and I just wanted to get the video out of this. So yeah, hopefully you get inspired by this and maybe want to try something yourself, or maybe get some completely new ideas what you could do with the raising of the trees or the canals. Who knows? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. If you want to support me more, I now have a Patreon page, and this is also how I share save game access, so be sure to check that out if this is something you are interested in.